This program is sponsored by AVerMedia. Brilliant quality for a great price. Welcome to the third and final testing roundup of IFMC. Today we're going to look back at the Catalunya test, what kicked off, what happened, and what other developments happened. Plus we're also going to have a look at the GP2 guys on how they're preparing before their test on the 15th of February. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Here we go.
Coming up on today's roundup, we're going to be looking back at the Catalunya test in all 4 days of them, who was quickest in all of them, and what developments happened. We're also going to be interviewing the GP2 team bosses as well, interviewing them about how they're preparing for the Le Mans test that is going on the 15th of February, and how their drivers are coping at their teams. Plus we'll be getting the interviews with the top class team bosses, and also getting their reaction to how testing went for them, plus how they think Melbourne will go for them. So welcome to the final testing roundup of IFMC. We were at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the final 4 days of testing before the brand new season. So for those of you who did not see the live streams, here is a look back at all 4 days of the Circuit de Catalunya and who was quickest in all 4 of them. Day 1 of the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya was underway, however not how the drivers wanted it to be, because it rained throughout the session and it was getting very heavy and dreary with the track starting to spread out with standing water. However, this didn't stop the Etiads though, as they were able to head the field 1 and 2 with their brand new livery. Fernando Alonso topped the session by 2 tenths in front of teammate Valtteri Bottas. Salvador Duran, with the much improved SIC, was able to get his car into 3rd position, 4 tenths behind Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton in the Thomas Cook car could only manage 6th, while his teammate Sergei Sirotkin could only manage 10th. Juan Pablo Montoya on his return could only manage 9th in the Morin Giants racing car, whilst his teammate fared better and managed to get into 5th position. Pascal Wehrlein struggled in the AMP car and could only manage 7th behind Lewis Hamilton, while his teammate showed his wet weather skills and managed to get his car into an impressive 4th position. Heifeld on the other hand couldn't get close to his teammate and could only manage 11th. Day 2 saw Stoffel Vandoorne and Valtteri Bottas in the Etiads, and they were able to do what Alonso and Bottas could do in day 1 and head the field. And just like in Estoril, it was Stoffel Vandoorne who topped the timesheets by 1 tenth in front of Valtteri Bottas. Salvador Duran got another 3rd position, while Sebastian Vettel in the Scuderia racing car managed to get into 4th position, thanks to the dry conditions that we finally saw throughout the rest of the testing sessions. Mark Webber could only manage 5th in the Thomas Cook car, whilst Nico Rosberg was 6th. Nico Hülkenberg wasn't able to do what he could in day 1 and could only manage 7th in front of Kamui Kobayashi. Felipe Massa managed to get his Eldorado into 10th place behind Antonio Felix da Costa, whilst Nick Heifeld once again managed another 11th place. Day 3 saw Fernando Alonso once again in the car with Valtteri Bottas. However, it wasn't even Alonso who topped the session. This time, for the first time, Valtteri Bottas was able to get to the top of the timing sheets for the first time in testing by only 300ths in front of Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton in the non-upgraded Thomas Cook car was able to get it up into 3rd position, albeit 7 tenths behind Bottas. Vettel racked up another 4th, whilst Pascal Wehrlein managed 5th in the AMP car. Duran on the other hand struggled and could only manage 7th behind his compatriot Sergio Perez, who managed an impressive 6th place in the El Dorado. Mark Webber struggled to 8th, and Juan Pablo Montoya in the Mine Giants racing car didn't fare better and could only manage 9th in front of his test driver teammate Kamui Kobayashi. Felipe Massa wasn't able to get into the top 10 like he could in day 2 and managed 11th in front of Zolan Berg. Day 4 saw the Etiads completely dominate the session. Alonso and Van Dorn headed the top of the timing sheets, with Alonso being in front of Van Dorn, and to make it even that more interesting, the gap between first to third was 1.3 seconds. The guy in third was Pascal Wehrlein in the AMP car, managing to find some pace in a non-upgraded AMP car. Juan Pablo Montoya impressed the Mine Giants Racing team bosses and managed to get into 4th position after struggling throughout the previous days. Sebastian Vettel could only manage 5th in the Scuderia ahead of his former Red Bull teammate Mark Webber. Lewis Hamilton on the other hand struggled and only managed 9. Same as Nico Rosberg in the Mine Giants Racing car, he only struggled to 10th. Sergio Perez managed to rank up into 8th position, whilst Heifel once again managed 11th.
Yeah, we sat down with Valtteri and we spoke about what needed to be done. We didn't feel the performances from him were good enough up until the point where he finally went fastest with a 120.7. Fernando was just behind him, but it's good improvements from Valtteri. He's really showing the critics. There's been a few people that have said that Stoffel deserves the place over him, but he done what we wanted him to do. There was a reason why we signed him, because we know he's a good quality driver. He did struggle a little bit on day 2 when he was behind Stoffel, but he come back fighting, and it's good to see that all of our drivers are competitive and can get them times when needed, and especially for Valtteri, whose confidence was a little bit low. But this should be a good boost going into Melbourne.
Yeah, well, that was quite lucky, wasn't it, with Josh pulling out in his Oscar team. With me just being in GP2, I thought I'd just have a little team with nothing to go on, and now I've got the chance to become a champion in F1.
I think we look pretty good. We've come out of testing with a reasonable car. We've had one mechanical failure that sort of let us down, but other than that, we've looked quite strong. I know we've got 2 very competent drivers. Pascal's really done himself justice, and Nico's settled in well in that last test in Catalunya. So, yeah, it's quite a good testing session for us.
It's a little bit difficult to say when it comes to the update, with how the update has affected our time. Yes, it's given us that boost, and a 1.3 second gap from first to third, is very, very significant. Stoffel was 8 tenths down, but still was 4 tenths up on third place as well. I think, if I'm honest, when I look at it, I'll be completely honest, I think Fernando just set an absolutely blistering time. That was 5 tenths quicker than any time that was set over the course of the weekend. When we was watching it and we saw that time went in, we're just questioning how we found this much pace. But teams will bring updates. Whether or not they can find 1.3 seconds worth of updates is questionable. It's given us a great bit of confidence going into the first race. We'll be looking at that as a real guideline of how we want to be hitting these. We've got 3 practice sessions from Friday to Saturday to also get ourselves into a good position, confidence-wise. Hopefully Fernando and Valtteri can push forward with their cars. We'll be bringing small packages, throughout the season to, we don't want to be sitting back and letting other teams gain on us. We want to consistently keep a steady hold on it. So, the gap is very large. You can't take that away from Fernando, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of confident signs for the other teams. They've got to look at things such as, day 2 when Duran was in third, with it was 5 tenths off. Last weekend at Estoril as well, they did split us. Just because we've brought updates doesn't mean that other teams won't be able to also bring similar updates as well to help them perform. So it's all swings and roundabouts. Pre-season has now come to a close. We look to Friday as our priority at the moment now. We will hopefully be still top. That's the overall goal to start off with, and then as long as we keep that going and we can keep the consistency up, things should be nice and dandy as we go into Melbourne.
Well, the first test, we can't really read much into that. I had 1 day of testing, I think, when Oscar pulled out, so we can't really read much from that. Then we learned more from the second and third test. So in the second test, we sort of established in the first few days that we are sort of 5th to 10th, and this sort of followed throughout to the third test. Really, we were pretty solid performances for most of the drivers that were testing in my car, and it went pretty well. The fact that we were all consistently in the top 10 with only a few occasions where we were outside it.
Yeah, I think this is a sort of classic case of we've sort of been left behind by the opposition in terms of upgrades, or just Catalunya didn't suit us. But yeah, I think I'd like to see that sort of pace brought through in Melbourne. It'd be quite encouraging to see it. If we can get a good top 10 start, could be good for the race. But yeah, I'd like to see that pace shine through. And obviously Nico showing decent pace on that third day. I'd like to see that consistently from him as well. Show him settled in very well.
It's really, really difficult to say, really, because I'd look at SIC Porsche, Scuderia Ferrari, Thomas Cook, Morange Orange, and AMP. They've all got their strengths. You look at SIC, and Duran got third on day 2. Scuderia Ferrari have got a 4-time world champion in Sebastian Vettel, who sets some good times. Thomas Cook have got 3-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. The Morange Orange racing cars, have consistently been there or thereabouts. Rosberg was very much looking likely to get a third place, and Montoya on the final day was also very competitive in regards to everyone else. So, there are a lot of options there. I think if I had to pinpoint one at this current moment in time, I'd probably say the AMPs. I think they've probably been most consistent out of the lot. But every team's got their strengths and weaknesses. The same, we've got our own strengths and weaknesses. But there's a lot to be offered there. And if I'm honest, if you're sitting there as a neutral, which at some points we will be, I think the battle from probably 3rd to about 12th is going to be very, very tight and very, very tense.
Yes, I do believe so. Rosberg's obviously been there since the start, and Montoya's came in recently due to Sortil, unfortunately, been given the sack. Rosberg has been consistently well always, the first 5 or the first 6 in most occasions, with like a bit of a drop in the last day, but we'll let him off for that because it's only like 1 day and it's testing, so he doesn't show a significant gap. And for Montoya, the last day was his main day. It was perfect in Catalunya. The fact that he got 4th place, and he was always in like 9th or 10th, and now he's just up there and he's starting to improve.
My aim throughout the season, to produce a reasonably competitive car, I think we're looking to finish at least 5th in the constructors. I'd love to see a couple of podium finishes, but whether we can challenge for a race win, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. It's going to depend on so many variables. So I think we have the car potentially that could win, but at the moment I'll be happy with a few podiums here and there, and a 5th place in the constructors. That'd be fantastic for us and the team.
So Sortil, it was really unfortunate that he had to be dropped, but the fact is that he's been in 6 years in F1, so he's had a lot of experience and a lot of racing time in the car, in the cockpit, and it's just, he's been really consistently well for Force India particularly. When he went to Sauber, the car wasn't very good, so he couldn't really show what he had to offer. But I thought that with him being in the car for Morange Orange Racing, it would be a good thing because he's got experience and he's got pace, but it's just like he didn't really seem up for it. He didn't really show the pace that I expected of him, and being in 13th, 12th and 11th is not really what I need. It's really unfortunate to see him go at such a early stage, and I do regret, like what with Bob said, I do regret we dropped him so early and see how he did in the actual racing, because of the testing doesn't show the true pace and they might have been hiding a bit, but it's just not good enough for what I wanted. And Montoya was showing great pace in the Oscar car by Joshua Anderson, and I just thought if he's still free, then I may as well take him up, and he's been showing good pace since then.
So there you go, Etihad at the top of the timing sheets for all 4 days yet again, but this time in convincing fashion. Now, Usually at this point we'd have a topic to talk about, but there wasn't any to talk about. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to actually have an interview with the GP2 bosses instead. How they're preparing for the new season. Their testing session starts on the 15th of February. So pay attention folks and see how they're preparing with their drivers as well. Whilst the top class heads off to the Australian Grand Prix for the first ever race, there's still another series that is preparing for their season starter, the Feeder Series. The IFMC GP2 series consists of 11 teams like in the top class, however all the cars are equal, with GP2 2006 chassis and Renault engines that are 100 brake horsepower lower than the the top class engine that was originally meant to be offered in the top class. There are some interesting driver lineups going on, and especially some teams that you might be familiar with in the top class, such as Etihad Racing, Orange Racing, Alitalia Junior Racing, which is the feeder team to Scuderia Racing, and George Road Motorsport. All of these teams are hoping have got a driver program. Etihad Racing consisting of Kevin Magnussen and Jolyon Palmer. So how are Etihad preparing for their season?
We've been doing some simulation with the drivers. Kevin Magnussen and Jolyon Palmer have done little bits. We've been looking at how we're going to go into the season. Obviously, our young driver performance program is very crucial to us because we look at Jolyon and Kevin as future drivers for us. We want them to have the greatest opportunity possible. Also, Stoffel's gone out on, shall we call it, a loan basis to Steelers Racing. There's some form of privatised business going on there in regards to how the two teams are working it. But Stoffel will be going to a GP2 team to gain experience. So as long as we have got our young drivers program, but we'll be keeping an eye on Stoffel, of course, you know, to make sure he keeps up with what we want him to do. But we've prepared the drivers, we've given them the opportunity, we've given them every chance to prove themselves. GP2 is a completely equal playing field. It's all down to driver skill, and we believe that we have chosen two of the best hot prospects in the Formula One in racing motorsport, you know, that there is. And all we can ask is that they go out there, do their very best, try and compete at the highest level, and whether they win or not, you know, that's how the young driver program works. We've got people working down there to help them achieve their goals, and if they showcase their talents, and then they'll eventually either get the testing seat or they could get a first team spot depending on how they perform. This is how we want to run our team, and you know, we're very proud and privileged with the way and the setup we have here.
Orange Racing, on the other hand, have Alexander Rossi and Mitch Evans running their lineup. So how is they preparing for GP2?
Well, for the first season of GP2, I'm just going to see how the drivers are going. I mean, if they do really well, then that's obviously a really good thing. But being 1-2, that's not what we're aiming for. We're just aiming for consistent points, and we're aiming for the drivers to improve throughout the year. I mean, we don't want them to be at the back because all of the engines are the same and all the cars are developed in the same way. So that just shows not very quick pace if you're at the back. But we're just hoping for them to be sort of near the rear at the start. We'll try the best, but if they're at the rear at the start, then they'll hopefully improve throughout the whole year.
Unfortunately, the Alitalia Racing team and the GRM team boss wasn't able to give us an interview. However, they're not the only teams on the grid. There's some newer names on the grid, such as Netflix Motorsport, team bossed by Cameron Anderson. So how is his team getting on with his drivers David Falsecchi and Stefano Coletti?
Well, to be honest, we haven't really prepared too much. We've just been trying to welcome the drivers into the team, because I think we do have quite a strong lineup this season. We could be battling mid of the pack, just trying to get some points, but this season is not really the real one for us. We're trying to build and prepare for the next season to get maybe a couple of wins next season. Yeah, they've settled in very well. As we just said before, that has been our main priority, just to welcome them to our team and just get them ready for the racing, because it is all about them at the end of the day, nothing to do with their engines, just trying to get them to their peak form. Well, to be honest, it's all a bit of a learning curve for us. We're not too sure what to expect from the two drivers. They've been very good in the past, but we're not too sure how they're going to settle and react to getting back into the GP2. We're hoping to be maybe with a bit of pace, kind of mid-pack, maybe 11th to 9th would be okay, but we don't have much really expectations going into testing.
Another team that's on the grid and preparing is Adidas Motorsport. Their drivers consist of Fabio Lima and Connor Daly. So, like with the other questions, how are they getting on? One of the most interesting teams is an Irish team under the name of SG Motorsport, short for Sean Grant Motorsport. Your team boss, you probably guessed it, was Sean Grant. Their drivers will consist of 2 IndyCar drivers, which are Joseph Newgarden and Graham Rahal, both relatively young drivers. So why did he feel that going with 2 IndyCar drivers was the best way forward? Plus, how is he also preparing for the season?
Well, Joe, I'm glad you asked. Basically, what we're doing here is that we're getting the drivers prepped with the cars. We've just received the cars, like the chassis and everything, getting the seats fitted, getting the fitness test done. Basically just preparing for the season, really. I think they're doing well. They seem to be having the switch dealing with the switch from IndyCar pretty well. Obviously, both decently experienced but young drivers feel they have great potential to do well in this series. So I think Etihad's team will be a threat because obviously they have a very good driver lineup in Magnussen and Palmer. So I think they will probably be the main threat to us this season. But we'll see how that goes.
So things in the feeder series then are going really well indeed. Testing for that, just to remind you, is on the 15th of February, which is a Monday, the day after the Brazilian Grand Prix. So be prepared for that. What's rest assured is that there's a good mixture of talent on the grid who are wanting to get into the top class. Let's just hope they do. So that's how GP2 is getting on right now. Well, that is just about it. So quite a short up roundup this is, but we're not going to do a track demonstration of Melbourne because it's not a testing session. So that is it for all the testing roundups that are happening. But that is not all of them just yet. These are only the pre-season testing roundups that are finished. There's still some more tests that are going on mid-season, such as the GP2 test that will be rounding up as well, along with the Catalunya mid-season test, the Silverstone mid-season test, the Suzuka end-of-season test, and the Suzuka end-of-season GP2 test. We'll all be doing roundups of them as well. But in terms of the pre-season, that is it. So before we go, let's show you the schedules for the Australian Grand Prix. As you can see, it is a bit different. On Friday, you're going to get the Friday practice session, which will start at 5:30 PM GMT. On the Saturday, you're going to get Saturday practice and then the qualifying. Saturday practice starting at 6 PM GMT and the qualifying starting at 7:30 PM GMT. So half an hour into the Formula E race that is going on in Buenos Aires. And then on Sunday, you're going to get the pre-race warm-up, which will be on at 1 PM GMT, with the 58-lap race being on at 2 PM GMT. So very interesting indeed. So, apart from that, that is just about it from this roundup. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who supported this, and let's hope that this series is going to be brilliant. But until then, guys, that is just about it. So thank you very much for watching. I've been JWF1, and I'll see you guys at the Australian Grand Prix, which will come out round about next week. Until then, I've been JWF1, and thanks for watching. Take care. This program is sponsored by AVerMedia. Brilliant quality for a great price.